Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our virtual classroom. Today, we're going to be going over lesson 21-2, I believe, 21-2. And let me just open that up real quick. Give me a second. There we go. 21-2, which is our 18th lesson. And we're dealing with percents, specifically finding the part of a whole. Percents, which is finding, specifically finding the part of a whole. And here are the problems that we're responsible for. As always, please feel free to pause the video, rewind if you need me to go over something again, or if you need to copy something down, maybe get a better idea. Know that that is at your disposal. Let us begin. So let us begin with this model. And this should look very, very, very familiar. In fact, this is the exact same model that we had last week, where we have a percent, which is always over 100%, over 100. A percent is a fraction over 100, or can be expressed as a fraction over 100. And on the other side of that, we have the part over the whole. Part over the whole. So in some ways, we're saying that the whole, or the total, or the original amount is equal to 100%, and the part is equal to the percentage. Now, having said that, now that we're using the same model, how is today's lesson any different than what we did last time? Well, let us observe that with this problem. This is number 4. This is the first one from your assignment today. And it simply says, determine what 15% of $649 is. Determine what 15% of $649 is. Ladies and gentlemen, for these problems, we're going to start off the exact same way that we did last week, in that we're always going to have two fractions. We want to set these up together. In fact, our first step is the exact same first step that we had last week. Number 1, we're going to line up the equivalent ratios, or the equivalent fractions. So we're going to have two fractions, and we're going to put the percentage over 100. Notice that in this problem, we are already given the percentage. When you're doing these kinds of problems, guys, when you're giving a percentage, immediately you should take that percent and put it over 100, because 15% is the exact same thing as 15 over 100. In fact, that is the main difference from what we saw last week. Whereas last week we were asking, what is the percent? This week we're given the percent, and we are given the whole. How do I know that that is the whole? Because of this word right here, of. Anytime you're taking something of, or from, or out of something else, you're taking it from the total, from the original amount. You're taking it from a whole of some sort. So look for words like that. 50% of something, 15% out of something else. That's how I know that this is a whole. And as we know from our model up there, the whole, or the total, or the original amount is always the denominator. That is our 100%, if you will. So we're essentially asking, if 100% is $649, then 15% is what? What amount? Now this right here, notice that I'm using an X. This is the letter X. I can use any letter, but in math and science, using the letter X to represent an unknown value is very, very common. So you'll be seeing that a lot more in this class from now on. So we're trying to find out, well, what is my part if my whole is 649? You can think of this as a scenario where you want to buy a PS5, and that PS5 costs $649. Let's say that it's bundled with like an extra remote and a game or something like that. So it costs $649, but it's actually being sold on sale for 15% off. So we want to know, well, how much money are we saving? Well, we're saving 15%, but how much money is that? Is that $15 less? No, it's not. We need to find what part of 649 is equivalent to 15 out of 100. That's what it means to have 15% off. All right, so we've done step number 1. We lined up the equivalent fractions. Step number 2, now that we've lined them up, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to cross multiply, same as last week. So we're going to make an equation. All right, and I'm going to have my first cross product, which it doesn't really matter which one it is. 15 times 649, I have that down here. 15 times 649. And my other cross product, I have 100 times X. So here I have 100 times X. Notice that I'm using the parentheses so that I don't confuse the X with the multiplication symbol. This should all be very familiar. Now, step number 3. Well, firstly, let me simplify this a little bit. If I multiply 15 times 649, that gives me 9,735. So I'm left with 9,735 on one side and 100, and that should be an X actually, 100X on the other. Final step, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to divide, and we're going to divide by the number next to the letter, which is also called a variable. But again, we're going to divide by the number next to the letter. So notice, ladies and gentlemen, notice that we have our letter right here. Our letter X is right here. So the number is 100, meaning that I'm going to divide both sides by the number 100. So I'm going to divide by 100. So now that cancels out. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm going to have 9,735 divided by 100. And we can work that out. Now, a quick shortcut to dividing by 100, ladies and gentlemen, is to simply take the decimal, which remember there is a decimal right there, and moving it over 2 spaces to the left. All right, so 9,735 divided by 100 is just going to be moving this over twice. And so now my answer is going to be 97 and 35 cents, $97.35. That would be my final answer. And that works for anything, guys. Anytime you're dividing by 100, it is the same as simply moving the decimal wherever it is from that number and moving it to the left twice. Just like multiplying by 100, you would add 2 zeros. Dividing by 100, you move the decimal 2 times to the left, and that would be your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the gist of this. And I'm going to make another video where I go over some more examples from our assignment. But for now, hopefully, this is a good reminder of how to go through with this. Once again, we set up the percent over 100, just like I have in my model up here, percent over 100. And then the whole, which is this, because it's of 649, will be in the denominator, and we're looking for the part. Once I set it up, ladies and gentlemen, we use cross multiplication to make an equation. I have one of my cross products right here. That was 15 times 649, 100x on the other. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we divide both sides by the number next to the letter, and that will give us our part. Notice that 97 and 35 cents is not a percent. That is not over 100. That is simply saying that if my 100%, my total amount is 649, my 15% would be that $97.35. Hopefully that was helpful, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you on the next video.